Welcome, travelers, to another episode of the Time Travel Trio podcast. I'm Jen.
I'm Matt.
And I'm Hyde.
And we're...
The Time Travel Trio.
Welcome. We're a little out of synchronicity today.
Even though synchronicity, what is it about? Like, what is it? It's just...
Being synchronized?
Yeah. No, thinking something that
word.
happened. The word means that you think something is happening, like, that has some sort of coincidence, but it doesn't. Like, you feel like something is connected, even though it's actually just a coincidence.
Is it not synchronized? Like the act of being synchronized?
It's something to do with your memory. Like, basically, it's like a form of deja vu.
Oh, it's an actual...
Yeah. I'm going to look it up.
I looked up the definition.
All right.
Before coming over here.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's kind of like a fake serendipity, I guess, right?
Yes. The simultaneous occurrence of events that appear significantly related but have no discernible. Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I'm reading from far away. I was like, what? I can read people. I was just reading from very far away. I had to lean in. Discernible casual connection.
Causal.
I'm sorry.
All right.
Then I messed that one up.
We're doing great. Good start.
We're in a bad start.
Time travel made that guy a real asshole.
Just so you know what we're getting into. Prepare for that clip. Multiple times.
Multiple times.
Matt, tell us about synchronicity.
Yeah, so we're doing Synchronicity from 2015. It's a low budget, kind of, I guess, like direct-to-video movie that came out in 2015. Yeah, I don't really know anyone involved with this at all, but it was written and directed by Jacob Gentry, and it's a physicist who invents a time machine must travel back to the past to uncover the truth about its creation and the woman who is trying to steal it, which is misleading, obviously, but...
Yeah, that's not at all true.
Yeah, that's not what's happening.
No. Yeah, this is one of those movies that seems like maybe it wanted to be a Netflix original movie, but wasn't quite good enough.
Right.
You know?
Just like a step too below.
Yeah. So it kind of like feels that way a little bit when you're watching it, but it is more low budget.
Yeah, I mean,
version.
It's it's like it's trying to go for a style that's like futuristic noir,
Yeah.
but they I don't know. They had constant sweeping headlights from helicopters that was really annoying.
Yeah, and I didn't understand because it really made me question what is the world that we're living in? Like,
I know.
Where are we and when are we? Is it the future? And like,
I think
people
they were
are
trying to make
constantly
it like
on
Blade
their own?
Runner.
Yeah, that's that was intentional. They were like, oh, it's in the future, kind of, but like, what's with the world? We don't know. It's like, I don't know.
I hate that.
It's like a filmmaker. It's obviously the director's choice to do that.
Right, but it's like that's the only clue that anything is
different.
is different. Thank you, because otherwise it's just like there are so many gratuitous shots of this guy going in and out and up and down in elevators. It's absolutely insane. No one loves elevators that much. Like, oh, there's all these clear glass elevators. Let's just shoot in all of them. It's
in the future.
It's so interesting and visual. No, it's not.
It's I think part of it is like, we've done this before, you and I, Jen, with when we did Death, Sex, and Murder, and like we decided like, okay, resources wise, we have a college campus, so the whole place should just take place on a college campus. This tried to disguise what it was too much, and if it had happened in 2015, if the movie was taking place in modern day, or maybe slightly in the future, like 5-10 years in the future, it would be much more believable.
Yeah.
And that little aspect is so unnecessary. And it kind of, for me, actually, it was probably one of the more distracting parts of the film because it makes the world, I know it's trying to make the world feel bigger, but it actually makes everything feel smaller because then you become very aware that they're just talking in rooms most of the movie.
I totally agree with you because at one point when he was like going from the lab to her apartment, I was like, is it like a campus? Like everyone just lives in the same place? Because he didn't like go outside or like walk down the street or anything like that. He just like was in a room in the lab and then he's like walking down a hallway and he's at her apartment. So I'm like, does she live near the lab? Like I didn't...
I mean, the opposite is seeing him walk, and that's kind of boring.
Right, but like show him leaving the building, going out into the street, honestly. Like, something like that would make it feel a little bit bigger, as you're saying.
Right.
Or just, like, decorate the building a little bit different. All the buildings looked exactly the same, and I think that was also part of the problem. And then when we were in, what the hell is the guy's name? Klaus Meisner, which, whoa, we gotta talk about that name, by the way. when we were in his office, it was like very blatant that was like a different set.
I mean, it was green screen, like
right. But I mean, like they weren't trying to, you know, like there were actually like windows and like a backdrop and stuff. Whereas like everything else, you're right, it looked like prison dorms.
Right. Well, I mean, you know, Michael Ironside, they were probably like, "Yo, stand in front of this green screen, just for like, we need you just for like 2 days max, and then you're done."
Yeah, that was all right. Let's watch the trailer before we get into this too much.
Project log, final entry before the experiment.
Prepare to load MRD.
Close hatch.
MRD in place.
Engage sequence. Here we go.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
I saw someone. There. Right there. It looked like a person.
Don't tell anyone about the experiment. We're on to something much bigger than we imagined.
Where did you just come from?
You're operating independently of yourself in an alternate timeline.
There's 2 of you.
The invention of time travel. How much?
It's not for sale.
2 beings of the same consciousness cannot exist in the same universe. He's experiencing temporal feedback.
To be so close to controlling time.
It has to stop.
You're gonna kill yourself. The fate of the universe is in your hands.
An infinite number of possibilities.
Metric pressure sustaining.
An infinite number of choices.
Do it now.
An infinite number of outcomes.
Do you know who I am?
Wow, I hate that trailer almost as much as I hate this movie.
Yeah, the trailer. I mean, they had to get someone to see it, but it's like, I mean, if you see it before the movie, it's gonna spoil everything for you.
Yeah, for sure. It's also like the review text that they have, like people who have reviewed it are like blogger websites and stuff that you've like never heard of, but which like fine, okay, but they're like, this is the best sci-fi movie in years, and like spectacular. I love this movie, and it's just like, who did you pay?
Did anyone else notice that the score, and you know, like,
is Inception meets Tron?
Yeah,
totally.
The score for this movie, like, I was like, is this Inception? I was like, I honestly at one point thought, did they take an Inception track and like literally just like modify it a little bit?
It's like a more Tron legacy version of Inception.
It's very synthy, and at first I was like, oh, I kind of dig it. And I was like, this is way overkill.
They use it so much.
I actually liked the first half of that trailer, and then once it started getting into like the universe is in your hand, and I was like, all right.
It's like dropping the sound where someone says, "This is important, you're important," and then dropping the other clip where someone says, "Oh, I can't do this," or it's like just
Yeah.
There's so many things I hated about this movie. Just the pretentiousness of it, I think.
Yeah, still a very cool poster though.
It is.
Well, I mean,
but she.
It doesn't make sense when you see the movie, but the poster is cool.
Yeah, I mean, Abby, the character, the only Gar character, is all over this movie. Like, the poster, the trailer.
Because she looks like Malin Ackerman with dark hair. That's why.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think we can all safely say that we have not seen this movie or heard of it before.
Right, sorry, yeah.
I know. But, yeah, this... I don't know. It just, watching this movie, my initial reaction was like, I don't really like what I'm seeing. It feels like someone trying to do an artsy Primer, but they're not as smart as that guy was. Like for whatever you have to say about Primer, he at least sat down and mapped it all out.
Hold my tongue.
I know, exactly. Like, whatever you have to say, he at least mapped it out, and like, you can.
Yeah, it was well thought out.
Like, he put boxes in places that, like, you didn't know at first, but it's there.
Can I say one thing about Primer?
Time travel made that guy a real asshole.
Exactly. With that in mind, at least that guy maps it out. This one, he's just like, I'm going to try and do that, but be artsy and be noir and be kind of like, cool, but like it just didn't work for me.
But yeah, I agree. There's a lot of scenes that very, very much reminded me of like some of the interiors in Blade Runner. I mean, he straight up has a scene that might as well have been, even though it's done with a guy, it might as well have been Rachel smoking, or it might have well been like when Decker goes into like his police captain and he gives him the assignment. Like there's a lot of scenes that look almost storyboard wise, shot for shot like that. And I mean, I just recently rewatched some clips from the I forgot the name of it, Westwood Studios video game version of Blade Runner, the point and click, which is literally, I mean, it was approved by the company that owned Blade Runner, but watching that game was basically like this movie. It feels like this movie is trying to become that game that's just trying to become like that. And the game is great.
That's funny.
But I'm just saying, it's just like
it's one thing to be inspired by something, but it's another to just copy it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
It's trying too hard to copy that feeling instead of just like, oh, Blade Runner was a cool movie. I want to make my own version of it.
Yeah. Everything in this movie is blue. It's very blue movie.
Yeah.
Yes. It's like that typical, like, we needed to feel like the future, so we made it blue. Just like when they need to look at the past, they make it sepia.
Yeah, and it's also a lot of gray and stuff because a lot of the lighting is from windows, from headlights, or from a spotlight that's coming from a helicopter. So it's like mostly everything is shadow and backlit through windows.
That's true.
That's like sweeping by. So it's like, it's very dark.
I felt that the beginning took way too long to get to when he actually time travels. We didn't need to see, since we saw it repeated, we didn't need to see every single step that, as he called it, Jim Prime makes the first time.
Yes.
And it took like 45 minutes of the movie for him to actually do the time traveling. I would have much rather have spent more time with future Jim. Yeah. Trying to
living with that stuff.
Yeah. It was...
Because there is, once like he realized he's getting sick and that he's got to figure out what's going on, like there is a real urgency to it. Like there were definitely some scenes where I was like, oh, what's going to happen now? That was interesting.
I do think they should have had, I do agree there were stakes, which was nice, but there should have been more specific stakes of like when he's going to die. I think that was a missed opportunity because I was like, they kept talking about him like, oh, why don't you leave this place, go far away, whatever, and maybe you'll live. And he's like, no, it's just delaying the inevitable. And I'm like, okay, but how long is the inevitable? Is it like another day or like another year? Because that's a big difference.
Yeah, there is a point where they like, 72 hours or whatever, 48 hours, because that's when they're going to do the next wormhole creation. But I don't think that's necessarily when he's going to die.
No.
Right,
so
but they should have made it that that's when he's going to die. That's what I mean.
If anything, that's when he should just run away for it because that's when the other one leaves the timeline. So after that, he should be fine.
Right.
Yeah.
But anyways, the...
it kind of reminds me of Triangle.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, there is kind of that like scene...
How the timeline plays out a little bit.
Yeah, how the timeline plays out. Obviously, that's more... I guess spiritual,
more well done,
and more well done. But this one was more just like there's more of you. You're gonna die, and look at you. There's you dead. So that's kind of like where it ends.
That's you dead is one of my favorite. When I say that, Matt, that that's you dead is like one of my favorite. Like only can happen in a time travel movie.
I know
that's you, but you're dead.
Yeah.
Yep. And it has happened so many times in time travel movies too.
It really has. It's like, I'm dead. I saw my
we just did FAQ about time travel. That's you dead.
Yeah, it's true.
Literally like Paycheck.
Paycheck.
I don't know why that came to mind, but that one.
Time lapse.
Time lapse. You could even say, what's the movie that for some reason you never think of the name of that we did? That inspired the podcast.
Oh, Project Dominic.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I hate that title so much, and it's horrible, and I can never remember it. Okay, so this guy Jim Beale invents a time machine, kind of. He and his friends, which his friends are, I don't
Chad
mind.
and Matt.
Chuck and
Maddie.
Chuck and Maddie.
You know
that. Sure. Close enough.
Jim, Chuck, Maddie, and Abby.
Yeah. The most vague, blank, bland names.
And the future names do not get better.
No, apparently not. Chuck I didn't mind. Chuck was like, he
Chuck.
knew what to do. He was, he definitely helped move the story along. I hated how Maddie was the science nerd of a group of science nerds. Like, I hate that trope so much. It's like, why? Just let him be the smart one. He doesn't have to be a nerd about it. But
Right.
like the fact that
he's on the spectrum, and he's like, and he has these weird personality disorders
that he can't figure out left and right. Even okay, I understand. Like his reasoning was like, well, there's too much other stuff in my brain taking up space or something like that he explains away, which is like bullshit. But okay, fine. You get your shoes on in the morning, but sure, no, you're right. Okay. Yeah. Then they literally write it next to where he has to turn it left with an arrow, right with an arrow, and he still couldn't figure it out.
Yeah,
he's literally like, which, and the guy's literally like, turn it left and then turn it right, and he's like, right then left or left then right. What? He's like, turn it left. All you have to do is turn it left. There's literally an arrow.
It's one thing.
It's such a stupid reason for it to not work.
Yeah, it's one thing to like have that be a personality trait. It's another to have a whole beat in your movie where it makes a problem for everyone. It's like, that's such a dumb reason to make it not work.
Right.
Yeah, there's so many other things. You could have even just like spoken techno jargon to me that something, you know, some synapse didn't fire or something like that. Even I would have like rather had, yeah, or something, or like maybe because he was trying to time travel again, the universe didn't want him to time travel again, and so it like broke itself. You know, who knows? Like even in the beginning, there's a line where he's like, "Oh, maybe visitors from the future came back to sabotage the machine." I honestly, I wrote that down because I honestly thought that that's something that would happen when he time travels in the future, and it doesn't, and that was weird. And so like I wish that would have happened. Like maybe even Abby had done that, or Chuck.
Right. It's literally workplace incompetence.
Yeah.
Just like the dude who always gets their like paper caught in the printer, like that dude.
Yeah.
Right.
That's the equivalent of what just happened.
Yep.
And he's always the guy who has to print out the agenda before the meeting.
Right. And like some reason we decided, you know, maybe we shouldn't let Maddie print out the papers.
Like why didn't you switch with Maddie? Why isn't Maddie why is he the one? Like even at one point he was like totally shaking and like the thing was gonna fall, and it's like, why is he the one doing it? I don't understand. Chuck is so much more level-headed.
I know. It's ridiculous.
Anyway, so that's how the time travel works. There's a machine. Yeah,
there's a machine, and like it's your typical wormhole. They open up one end and they have to have another end where it comes from, and you know, initially it's like they use a metaphor that we haven't heard much of, where it's a phone receiver. Which I kind of liked. It was better than the piece of paper being punched through.
Yeah, I thought it was a better... Yeah, that's true. I thought it was a better way to explain how... Like, why you would need two... Like, not two, but you know what I mean? Like, you could just call into your own phone.
Exactly. Sort of which I liked, but... because the whole idea was they want to send info back, so like it's like a phone call pretty much that they're trying to do.
Yeah. But
then right away it's like, no, the wormhole's big enough for someone to run through. So it's kind of like yeah. I
mean, it makes sense because they have the whole like Tesla Edison analogy in the movie, and that's what they did was like the phone call to test that whatever.
Yeah.
So
it's I mean that just a quick aside like nerds, like writer nerds love to bring in Tesla. That's like...
Yes.
This guy's such a dork.
Whenever writers bring up Tesla, you know they're trying to be all like, ugh, I don't like Edison. I like Tesla. Tesla is cool.
They literally had that line where he's like, Edison's an asshole.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, this writer's pretentious.
It's the go-to pretentious writer.
Yeah.
It was something that like for a long time was really cool to say, and then everyone started saying it.
Yeah.
And it's like, yes, we all know Edison was a jerk. He was basically
as are most men in history, by the way. Oh, hold on, thank you.
Time travel made that guy a real asshole.
There you go.
Maybe Edison time traveled. Maybe that's why he is such an a-hole.
Yeah.
Maybe he wanted to.
Yeah, maybe he wanted to.
Yeah.
Anyway, that clip that I keep playing that's in this movie, Chuck says that line about Jim, and I just thought it was perfect, and I love it, and we're going to play it forever moving forward on our podcast, not just for this movie, but anytime it's relevant.
I want to say to the people listening, we're going to say a lot of stuff about this movie that we did not like, and probably a few things that we did, but one thing we definitely all liked was Chuck's line. Because Chuck is now a hero.
I liked Chuck.
I like Chuck. Yeah. I looked up the guy. He's been in a couple of movies like The Signal. He was in that, and I'm like, oh, the guy, like Chuck is that dude who is like, you know what? This character, I want to see this character and this actor in another movie.
Yeah, he's rational. You know, he tends to kind of run with things, but he also is like, no, you should be smarter about it.
Yeah, he's very level-headed, which is nice to see in a time travel movie, honestly. to have someone who's like, actually, don't do those things. Just because you time travel doesn't mean that you know everything. And so, like, I appreciated someone like that.
Yeah. The time travel, for the first, like, half of the movie or whatever, you think that he just traveled once, and it's like kind of, because, you know, the first time through you kind of see him in the background, you know, you kind of see these things, and, you know, you're like, oh, is he up there? Like, he's in her room when he calls the room from down below.
Right.
But then they have this big twist, spoilers, it's in the trailer, that he isn't just time traveling to the past, he actually went to a parallel dimension, or a parallel timeline, where it's like there's more than one of him, and it's like now we're talking about different timelines, like Back to the Future 2.
Right.
It's like now you're in a whole different timeline where everything's more messed up than you know. There's more than one of him. Two of them. So
well, we have a clip, right, of this scene, and then afterwards I'll tell you my reaction to it.
And make things worse?
The theory. Are you joking? Is he joking? Make things worse? I have less than 2 days to live. I lost the rights to my life's work. My girlfriend, she hates me. So how could it possibly get any worse?
Parallel dimensions. Parallel dimensions. There exists not one singular universe, but an infinite number of possibilities coinciding simultaneously and eternally. Every conceivable version of every being persisting forward in a concurrent reality. Your time-space excursion was not to the past of your present universe. On the contrary, it was simply a migration from your plane of existence to the one adjacent. You're operating independently of yourself in an alternate timeline.
No.
That's exactly my reaction to Jim. No.
Yeah,
I literally, okay, let me just tell you my reaction. I literally said, ugh, and I spit out my TV. Not even kidding. That was how I reacted to that.
Yeah, when I made the clip, I was like, I gotta throw in the no. But yeah, I agree.
Yeah. The no is great. I forgot that he actually said that.
Yeah, because he like holds his hand and is like, no.
Like, there's like a great, we will say what we will about this guy's acting, but that line was delivered very well.
Yeah,
I'll definitely give him that.
That scene is when he's starting to be dying, and he takes like the go-go juice or whatever, and so he starts. He like
go-go juice. I love it.
Well, he says go juice. I think
go juice. Oh, okay. But go-go juice.
I love go-go juice.
But
I love go-go juice.
Isn't go-go juice what?
That just makes me think
Honey
of Kill
Boo Boo?
Bill.
Yeah, go-go juice. I think go-go juice. Oh
Honey
my gosh,
Boo Boo, right?
dude, yes.
Okay, I was thinking Kill Bill.
I need to make a graphic with your face on it that just says go-go juice.
Yeah.
Like a fake advertisement with like a juice box.
Go-go juice.
Can you? Okay, we'll do that.
Yeah.
Oh my god, that was so funny.
But yeah, so in that scene, he's more animated. He's more animated now, so he's like being kind of silly and
he
slappy.
doesn't just have to walk around being sweaty and angry.
Yeah,
No.
So yeah, we're dealing with multiple timelines or whatever, and we don't see more than 3 of them.
Which, by the way, that was the point that I was like, oh, you're just trying to be Primer. Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
And I checked out.
So like Jen and I watched it separately, and when you talked to me while I was watching it, it was right after he saw himself dying, and my reaction was like.
Because I was like, what? Oh, how's it? He watched it before I did, and so it's like, oh, how's the movie? And you were just
and I was trying to like.
It was just like a heavy sigh, and you're like, just.
Yeah, I was like, they just revealed some dumb twist that I'm like, I was writing down notes, and I was like, it was my reaction in the moment of being like, what the hell?
Yeah, I could. Anyway, what was your reaction, Hyde?
I think it was like, I think I was just kind of like numb to it at that point. Like when that reveal happened, I was just like, all right.
If I hadn't seen 65 time travel movies up until this point, I probably wouldn't have reacted as strongly to something like that. But because of all of the crap that we've seen, and yes, I will say crap, because 75% of the things we watch are really crap. I'm just going to be honest. This is no exception. And just like all the shit that we've had to watch through and wanted to watch through. We do this. We're not forced to do this podcast.
Yeah, no one's holding a time gun to our head.
Which, Time Gun, coming soon, starring Emilio Estevez and Mick Jagger. But, which is, anyway, 75%. So, I think that was part of it, was just like, like another, like you couldn't just do, like,
You know, there are a lot of movies that we've seen, but the movies that stand out are usually the ones that at least do something different, even if they're not good films.
Predestination is a good film,
right.
But like you're right,
it does something very different with the genre.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, which is what indie films are kind of supposed to do. You're not supposed to mimic bigger budget films. A good indie film makes something that would never be seen on a big budget level.
Even ARQ was
different.
It definitely wasn't one of the best movies we've watched, but I didn't hate it. Yeah, it was memorable. It was a good example of like one space and like making the most of it and like working with what you have, but still making it like these interesting things that are going on with this time travel. And this movie, you're right, it just copies other stuff, and there's nothing after this. I was like, oh, there's nothing unique about this movie at all anymore.
And also like the whole reveal of the different timeline, it introduces all sorts of problems that it didn't have to have.
Yeah.
Also, it's kind of like this. It's kind of like the time lapse effect, or Danielle Panabaker, because time lapse has a very solid concept at its core.
Yeah.
And interesting characters that could interact and cause problems, but instead we end up sidelined with this bookie conflict
because the core concept was stolen from the Twilight Zone episode. Well, it's not even theirs.
But like everyone steals from Twilight Zone.
I know.
You know what I'm saying?
I know. I'm not like faulting them for that, but I'm saying like it's not. They're not like they had this genius idea and then they totally shat on it. It's like they saw a genius idea and they wanted to adapt it, which there's nothing wrong with that, but they failed completely.
Right. Even terrible movies like Project Almanac, which is near the bottom of the barrel. Sound of Thunder.
Yeah.
At least something unique happens with with their concept to make it stand out from the rest.
Yeah.
This movie isn't the worst we've seen by any means. There's actually a couple good moments in this movie. The problem is it plays like a guy, like it looks like Jacob Gentry, who knows, maybe he actually is a very talented director and writer, but it feels like he made this movie purely to go to other studios and say, look what I can do on a small budget. Now imagine if you gave me a bigger budget instead of, here's a really good movie, now give me a bigger budget.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think he's just, I don't know.
It reads like a test screening. Yeah. It reads, like, you know what I'm saying? It just reads like a very long demo reel.
It's definitely not a movie that I could ever see playing in a movie theater. And like, granted, I don't think it was made for that, but like, even made for TV movies, like, hell, I even saw High School Musical 3 in theaters, like, which, by the way, total dork, but okay. But like, you know, something like that. Yes, that's a made-for-TV movie, but like, if it's enjoyable enough, people will pay money to see it on a theater.
Yeah.
A movie like this is, no, I would never.
Yeah, I mean, there are certain things that like cause issues, like the lighter. It's like a causal loop.
No,
it's almost like the keys in Triangle. Mm-hmm. But in this one, it's like it's really just like, oh, here's a lighter, here's a lighter, here's a lighter, here's a lighter. There's I don't know. It's kind of just like it's introduced to be like, see, that's where it came from. But now it's like, yeah, but now it's a causal loop, and like, what does that really mean? I don't know.
Yeah,
it's like divided by zero. It's kind of just like once you do it, it's just messed up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it loses its charm sometimes, I think, when something like that is overdone, which I think maybe it is in this movie, like 1 or 2 times. Just like, have it there and then show us once where it came from and then leave it alone. Don't talk about it ever again. But like, he's constantly like looking at it as if there's like a picture of her face on it or something. Like, people do that in movies. Like, if there's an object that reminds them of someone that they love or lost or both, they'll just like stare at it longingly and like that's an interesting shot that we want to see of our main character. And it's not. It rarely ever is. Right. Like, please stop doing that.
That's his spinning top from Inception.
Thank you. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I know. It's and like at least the flower that the dahlia or whatever. At least that wasn't a causal loop. It was like it was there and then it went through time and then it started to deteriorate. At least it wasn't. At least that wasn't a causal loop.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that was good. I did like that.
I did like that as well.
And I liked being able to see a visual representation aside from just him being sweaty and him sometimes being sweatier.
It's like being
was basically exactly. We like see the flower healthy and then like at the end we see it like deteriorating because it time traveled. Although, their explanation, though, they do say consciousness, which, like, does a flower have consciousness? Like, he said two consciousnesses can't be in the same place.
I think because their DNA is the same, I think that's what they're going off of.
They should have said that.
Well, he did say their DNA was the same, but yeah, they didn't say because of the DNA is the same that it's deteriorating. But yeah, his, like, Jim is getting all his headaches because of the temporal feedback that his brain, because, like, you know.
Yeah, and it's worse when he's closer to the
which
other
is fine.
version of him. Which I liked that.
Yeah, that's something that we like to see.
Yeah, that was speaking
nice
of
twist.
consequences, yeah, that was a nice consequence of time travel. It's frustrating when people time travel and there's no physical consequences, honestly, because there should be. When you're traveling through time, it's not like a natural whatever.
Unless it's like a fun adventure movie, there should be some sort of
right, something like Time Bandits, fine. You don't need to have headaches in a situation like that. But in a movie like this, I'm glad that they did it, because they easily could have done away with that, and I would have lost a little bit of the things I liked about it. So
yeah, what was I gonna say? The reveal that she's a writer. I mean, I was like facepalm.
I hated it so much. Like I don't even know if I could tell you how much I hated that reveal.
She's so she's an amateur novelist that's sleeping with some rich guy, and she was obsessed with this like just random scientist who she read about in an article 2 years ago, who hadn't done anything yet. And when she met him happenstance by sleeping with the rich guy that is funding him, she like was surprised to meet him.
It's so strange because you know I've talked about this before. Writers, there's like 3 occupations that writers know how to write. It's like really maybe 4 if you're being like generous. It's other writers.
Yep.
Detective, scientist, and then if they're gonna be, and then architect,
yeah, or marketing journalists, or whatever.
It's like
they're like vague artsy.
There's such vague things that like don't step out of the realm of being a writer, and it's just why
she could have been anything else. For a second I was like, oh, maybe she's a scientist herself, and I was like, that's awesome, but no, she was not. She was a writer, and she was like Lois Lane,
right?
Honestly. But like not even as cool as Lois Lane.
Lois Lane is really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, but to her credit though, she did figure out the whole parallel timelines. But how?
Yeah.
Because she's a writer and she's creative, and writers are of course the smartest people on the planet.
There's no way, like, at the point that she's already had it in her notes that she understands that he's time traveled.
She hadn't even met him yet.
She hadn't understood in real life that he's time traveled yet.
Yeah.
So it doesn't make sense.
Because, like, she had all these notes.
There's no
like
way.
A notebook.
Unless she's omniscient and could have seen the future of these alternate timelines, there's no way she would have, like, because all her things were exactly correct. No.
See, that would have been cool if she was like a 5th dimensional being or something where she could like see all time.
Yeah, like Men in Black.
Yeah, that would have been great.
But nope, they didn't go that route.
It's also
actually
like
make the poster look a lot cooler. It would even
the poster would then make sense.
The circles around her would be like the love timelines.
Yeah,
I get it.
And it's like, and her method of writing down notes is on coasters.
Yeah. Oh my god! As a writer, I almost called you and paused the movie, Hyde, because Hyde and I are and Matt is somewhat of a writer too, but Hyde and I are big writers.
Yeah, you guys are actual writers.
And like, okay, I could see like maybe if you were writing a screenplay and you got a good idea at a bar or something,
like,
or even a novel, and like you wrote a note. But that's how she always takes her notes.
That's her prime note-taking method.
Insane. Just the fact alone that there's like water condensation already on these coasters from this public bar means that you would not be able to read these notes because it would have faded. Oh my god.
But it's also like what kind of bar lets her just like steal coasters left and right?
Oh
like they have to keep buying coasters because this girl keeps stealing them.
50.
Like this coaster lady. I mean, at least J.K. Rowling like wrote on napkins. Like no one misses napkins.
But it's not like she only wrote on napkins.
Right.
It's not like Harry Potter finally existed because there was like 5,000 napkins stacked together and like taped
She gave it to a publisher.
Right.
Like, here you go.
No, it's like you're sitting somewhere, you have a good idea, and you don't have anywhere to write it on. Now we have smartphones, so obviously... Right. It's not like they didn't have smartphones in 2015, by the way.
Yeah, and this is also the future.
Oh my gosh.
That's right. That makes it even more dumb.
Oh my gosh.
In the future, they don't
give her a laptop. I don't understand.
Oh.
Even a tablet. I would think even like a portable typewriter would be more reasonable than a coaster.
See, Matt just made me really begrudge that this movie takes place in the distant future because it doesn't make sense. Now it makes even less sense.
Well, if that was the case, then it needed to be post-apocalyptic.
I know. Well, I thought this movie was at least like 5 years in the future, you know, like in the not too distant future, but it just doesn't make sense.
Why? I'm so glad you brought up the coasters, because I would have been really sad if we hadn't have talked about that. Because
it just really annoyed me.
And the little... I did think of you, though, because her little tiny book that she takes all of her notes in, she also uses this little notebook of her story, and, like, she doesn't type it up, but, like, she puts her coaster notes consolidated in this tiny notebook that's, like, smaller than the size of my palm. Yeah. And that's where her whole story is. You can fit, like, maybe 3 pages in that little tiny notebook. It's insane.
I know. Yeah, it's all theories and, like, drawings and all that stuff. You know, like,
how does she,
graphs and stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, she's, like, doing these notes before she meets him. So, like, how is she... Like, this guy isn't publishing papers on it.
Right.
Like... He, you know what I mean?
Unless his boss is like in sex, which would be weird. Like, he's figuring out time travel.
That's what I would have. That's what I would have said, though. There should have been a scene of her, like, maybe in his office. They have office sex or something, and I would believe that maybe the investor has some notes of his science.
Yeah. Okay,
especially because he wants
sense.
to take over and own all the rights to it.
Right.
That would make sense, and like maybe she had this idea, and she, like, give her some credibility as a writer and a journalist, that, like, she learned that Klaus Meisner, which, oh my god, remind me when I'm done with this rant, Klaus Meisner was, like, the investor now in this guy's science. Yeah, and she that's why she wanted to sleep with him, to get information. Like,
give her some agency.
Still makes her kind of a whore, but
but
at least then agency. She has a purpose instead of just
with purpose.
instead of like just trying to get money.
Yeah, like that
would make so much more sense.
Like, you know, it can be.
It wouldn't make sense if she knew the future, but it would at least be a step in the right direction.
Like you know, like she could use her sexuality to get the knowledge. Like, granted, written by a man, that's not the most feminist thing, but at least that's a woman with agency.
Yeah.
As opposed to being like, oh, she's sleeping with some rich guy because she needs money. Oh, by the way, she's obsessed with this scientist guy that he's also funding. Like, at least give her, like, that choice to make.
Would have been so much better if she was a scientist and was trying to just steal his work.
Yeah.
I wish that would have been what this movie was. Which, when you read the description, it almost seems like maybe that is what it is.
That's what I thought it was going to be about.
Right, and so I was excited. I was like, great, finally this, like, hot woman scientist. We never see that. Right. Unless it's like your script, but like, which is all over the place.
This did remind me of your script, by the way, but I won't get into it.
But not in a bad way.
No, I won't. Yeah,
in the way that she should have been a scientist. Like, that would have been so cool, and like she admired him, and then like maybe she even since it's written by a man, then maybe she ends up falling in love with him because he's the hero. But like, and doesn't end up stealing it. But you know. Why couldn't they have time traveled together? Why couldn't she have time traveled? Wow, a woman time traveling. Who would have thought? Oh my gosh.
Well, but him running into the wormhole right at the start, that reminded me a little bit of.
I wish especially in the beginning of the movie, I really wanted her to also have time traveled. And it
would have made so much more sense.
It would have made a lot of sense. And it disappointed me at the end that was not the case.
Women do not time travel a lot. Like, we've talked about this. Like, women do not get to time travel a lot for some reason.
Yeah, I mean, the problem with, movies in general is that they're written mostly by men and produced by men and directed by men. So we don't, like, in general, there's not a lot of, like, good female characters. But especially in this sci-fi genre, they're dominantly men.
Must have penis to time travel.
Yeah, so it's going to lend itself to men time traveling, which is unfortunate.
Yep.
I think all three of us agree that a woman main character is way more interesting than a male main character at this point.
Just look at a movie like Triangle that we've mentioned a couple times already. Like, that movie is interesting, and if it was a white male lead who was, like, trying to figure shit out, he wouldn't have cared about his kid. He wouldn't, like, there's so many things that would have been different and made that movie so much more bland just because he's a man. And so, like, just because
you've seen it before.
But that's not to say that, like, men only right for men. There are men who do right things for women.
Right.
So, like, you know,
Predestination
Yeah.
was written by a man, and that's a movie that it
Spoilers.
has, like, a lot of stuff going on with, like,
Right.
female time travel and, like, science and, like, intelligent female characters.
Yeah.
And it's just... I'm not saying that every movie has to do that. Obviously not. There's a lot of movies that we've reviewed here that are very male-dominated that we've liked.
Yeah.
But, man, when you see a movie like this where, like, it's so low budget, there's no studio behind
And they
this.
pretend that the woman is dominating the movie.
Right.
If you, like, haven't seen it yet and look at the IMDb page or the poster, and that's so not the case. And I'm tired of writers like this who have such a big ego, and I'm looking at you, Primer, as well, that you have such a big ego that, like, you have to write white male characters who are you and no one else, and, like, sleep with the hot girl, and, like, all the women want them, and they're the smartest person, and all the things happen to them. It doesn't have to be the case. Like, if that's how you want to write your stories, fine, but don't make us watch it just because you have time travel in it. That's bullshit.
Like in Primer, at least the guy that wrote and directed was the guy in the movie, so it was that low budget where he literally was him. And in that sense,
it's like ego to the extreme.
Yeah, and it was also, I guess, worse. But there's no women at all in the movie.
No.
So he didn't sleep with anyone because there's no women at all in the movie.
Yeah, he's not even gonna let a woman grace his presence in his time travel movie.
According to Jen, that Primer would be masturbation. So
it's true. I have a very strong hatred for Primer.
We're gonna get letters about Primer again.
I don't care. I'm so used to it. There's literally a guy on Twitter once who stopped listening to us because I am a feminist and, like, went on a rant about how horrible men are in, like, a movie. I think it was, like, Hot Tub Time Machine.
Oh, yeah. Hot Tub Time Machine was a very polarizing one for all of us, really, and everyone who's listening.
The movie's so sexist.
Listen to that review if you want to hear its polar split. We're all kind of in unison about this movie. If you want to hear a movie where we all went different directions...
Feel free to blame me if you don't want to listen to a woman asking for equality in films. Heaven forbid women and men are equal.
But you're
Who
also
would have thought?
I mean,
gosh darn it, Jen.
God damn it.
But it's also not like we're not feminists. Like I am also, like, you know what I mean? So it's like if anyone gets,
for sure. Well, but, like, they blame me because I'm the woman, which is the whole problem to begin with. By the way.
Yeah. I know.
Anyway.
Exactly. It's just like I'm saying the same thing you are, and it's just like, and no one ever ats me, but I'm also, like, nowhere near as, like, active on social media anyways, but yeah.
You're better off for it, man.
No, I want people to comment to me. Please do, and so I know that, you know, I would rather, if you're that much of an asshole that you can't even listen to a woman, like, wanting, like, equality in film for women and men, then, like, I don't want you listening to her podcast. I'm sorry, but no. Good riddance.
She's asking you to at her. She's asking you to. You know how some people are like, "Hey, don't at me about this."
Please.
Like, she's asking you to at her.
Please do.
But no, I mean, really, this movie has a lot of problems.
Doesn't pass the Bechdel test.
Does not pass the Bechdel test.
There is Meisner's wife is there, but they talk about. True. But she talks about Jim right to her face. Oh, okay. So it's about Jim right there.
Okay. That's true. I did forget about that.
Or Tesla, whatever. So it's about...
Technically, that's still a man.
It's a man, so.
Yeah.
I will say this movie does have very clear consequences that a lot of movies don't have in this genre, especially at this type of realm. The consequences are fairly clear, even though they don't define the time limit or the urgency. They do at least say, like, no, this will kill you eventually. So that there's that. I mean, but I'm guessing this movie doesn't have a ton of scientific accuracy.
Well, at first there is something there where it's like, you know, let's make a wormhole, and we can only do it if there's someone at the other end making it, which is like fine. That's how it should work. Like they open it up in the past, they expect to see something from the future, and then later on they try to do it from the future. Well, they do it from the future,
right?
So that is fine. Where the scientific accuracy ends is where there's like now a different timeline where there's suddenly more of him in there, but where do those other ones come out of? Like, if you're building this time travel to be wormhole based, and you suddenly have more than two of him, where did the third one come from? The one that was dead in the hotel.
Yeah.
Like, maybe he came from a timeline where Maddie didn't fuck up and mess up the left and right. But in the time that we actually watch, where did that one come through?
Yeah, it literally makes no sense. It was only in there was to be dramatic.
There was one wormhole that we saw, and that's where the second one came out of. Where did the third one come from? Yeah. There was no other wormhole.
There was no other wormhole. in the timeline that we're in, so it doesn't make sense.
It does not make sense.
It does not
It's a
make
big
sense.
plot hole.
That's a huge misstep. And also, at the end, to have a nice ending, he enters a timeline where he had died previously in an explosion. Well, then where did he come from?
Yeah.
There was no wormhole for him to come through.
Yeah.
He was literally dead, and there was, like, no one making a wormhole.
Oh man, you're right.
So, like, what the fuck?
Makes no sense.
It's just, yeah.
People
so
just
that
don't understand time travel. They think they do, and they try and make a movie with it, and then it usually is wrong in some way.
But it's just inconsistent in their own rules. You have wormholes, and then like you forget about wormholes.
You know, usually I really am like keyed in on it. I think, like I said, this movie, like when I heard like this ridiculous twist, I was so numb. I feel like this movie I was watching, and I just at some point I was like watching, but I was like mentally checked out. I was just like, okay, all right, cool. Like, you know, and it's not because I've seen so many. It's because it just wasn't grabbing me.
Yeah.
It just was like, kind of like, I was like, okay.
It was boring.
Okay,
for
cool.
an action movie.
Yeah, you're like, all right, well, I guess that's happening now. And you're just like, okay.
Yeah, just lots of artsy shots of like the coffee, whatever, like whatever they did to make the wormhole effect, where it was like light from underneath and it was like ink or like water or coffee, whatever, like orange, like the wormhole effect.
Right.
Oh, yeah, it looked like an eyeball.
Yeah, but it was basically just someone like dripping a black thin water that was like backlit. Right. But anyways, yeah, there's lots of that.
Yeah,
it's in the trailer too.
In the hotel room, it should have been, first of all, his conversation with like the hotel key guy, the guy who gives him the key, was way too long. It felt like we were watching that for like 20 minutes. It was insane. It's like, oh, you're already checked in. And then it's like a weird pause for like 3 minutes, and he's like, right, can I have a key?
It was like some weird like Overlook Hotel like ghost clerk
bar
kind of thing. He was like, you've already been here.
It was like the Haunted Mansion or something.
Yeah.
It was so weird.
That's how hotels work.
Yeah, it should have been like maybe instead of him being dead on the bed, that like, what if in this timeline, like, someone had killed Meisner and was, like, framing him, and then he was on the run? That's what I was like, oh, maybe someone's framing him, and that's what's going on. But I was like, no, but that's him, so that doesn't make sense. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, oh, okay. What? It didn't. Anyway.
I feel like I need to go back and like be a lot kinder to movies like Free Jack, because as bad as Free Jack was, I was never bored. I was never bored.
I wish we had watched this before we watched Free Jack, because I totally agree. I think we would have enjoyed Free Jack more.
I feel like I was too hard on Free Jack. Like, I just keep thinking after this whole review, you know, I kept like my brain keeps going to Free Jack for some reason.
This movie reminded me of Free Jack,
and I'm like, Free Jack was so much better than I said it was.
It's because the guy the aesthetic of Free Jack is very similar looking to this movie, but the guy kind of looks like Emilio Estevez, so...
He does.
Yeah, it is. I don't know. Yeah.
No, you're right. I was thinking Free Jack a lot, too, when I was watching it.
Oh.
And I even like A Sound of Thunder, which, granted, yes, that's a really good, bad movie. But, like, I would probably, like... After all of the stuff we've watched since then, how enjoyable that movie was, looking back.
Yeah, like blissful ignorance.
Yeah.
Oh,
we were so young back then.
We were so young a year
now
ago.
We're just cynical, and I'm just... Like, find me a time travel movie that I actually like, and I'll be surprised now. I'm not, like, at that point.
At this point, we're running out of good movies to cover.
Yeah, we're getting near the bottom of the barrel.
Yeah.
And we're getting out our chisels.
Yeah. Our Back to the Future 3 steam engine train is kind of running without all the, you know what I'm talking about? Like when they have to put all the coal in, and it's
I just looked at my notes here. The one other thing how it works is he mentions that it uses the Earth's axis, which is interesting, like because there's like potential energy there, you know, because how it's spinning all stuff. I'm like, okay, that's. Although, I was thinking of that one movie with Ben Affleck, but in that.
Paycheck?
Yeah, but that shoots but that shoots light across the universe. Anyways, sorry, I just thought it was similar, but no.
Okay. Yeah. What can you talk about what the MRD is?
It's just a fuel source. It's just radioactive. He says like yellow cake uranium. It's like that. It's just a radioactive thing that drives it. Okay. It's just I guess that enables them to harness the Earth's axis. I don't know, but yeah, the MRD and Earth axis. It creates energy to open the wormhole.
Okay. It's basically unobtainium or utopium from like Spider-Man 2. Like,
okay. Okay.
Yeah, it's the same deal. Yeah.
Cool. So we talked about the rules enough, I think, right? Was there anything else?
Yeah. I think you touched on kind of all of our typical
points.
Relevant to the story.
Yeah, it is relevant to the story. I will give it that. And you're right. There are things that we didn't hate about it. There are certain aspects.
There's
that
flashes of like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I liked the bit where like the bartender changed and like because he didn't there was like a small change and he didn't like if we have to live in this world where you're this stupid alternate timeline bullshit, then like I liked that they had there's the little subtle differences that you didn't pick up on. Mm-hmm. Granted, they should have had more than just that one. It's like the only one they had. They should have had a few things, like at least 3.
It's also like a bartender. There can be more than one guy that works there,
right?
It's not that much of a stretch.
But it's even if there is more than one guy that works there, it's like he went at that same time and it was a different person. Which
I see what you mean. Yeah.
An alternate.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
He's in a different timeline.
Yeah,
but he didn't really. He like barely talked to that guy. Like.
Yeah, there's no filmmaking choice for me to care about it. It wasn't like there was a shot of him. I was just like, oh, bartender was different. All right.
Yeah, I wouldn't have picked up on it if they hadn't like shown that effect of his face literally changing on the screen. I wouldn't have noticed that he was different because he didn't even have any lines. Like he was not there. He was not there enough.
That's something that needs to be like peppered in with so many. It needs to be another movie. Going way back is Frequency.
Oh,
yeah. Where Frequency does do a very good job of like these subtle changes are now like distinct differences.
Mm-hmm.
And this movie just doesn't quite do that.
I know.
Yeah, no, you're right. That's a good example of doing that correctly. Even like maybe Klaus's wife looking different, having different hair color, even or something like that.
Bigger change.
Yeah, which I still haven't talked about it. Klaus Meisner, that name, oh my god. What shitty writing are you doing? It's like, this person's the bad guy. Here's a mallet that I'll hit over your head with it.
His name is Klaus, but he's not German, he's just
Meisner.
a white guy.
First of all, I thought it was Miser for a long time until they added the end in there. So I was like,
that's why I was like,
okay, come on. So I thought it was Klaus Miser, which.
Yeah, that makes it even worse.
Better. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't want to go on a huge rant, but their romance was horrible.
It's literally categorized as a romance on IMDb. I'm just saying, okay, bye.
Yeah, it's like he at one point he says like, Abby, you're my constant. It's like, you just fucked her once, dude. Like, get over it.
He also calls her his girlfriend in the is it in the trailer?
Yeah,
in the clip. He's like, my girlfriend's mad at me, whatever. And I'm like, she's not your girlfriend. Oh my god, exactly. You slept with her once. Like, you've literally never even gone on a date. Like, calm down, bro.
Yeah, like
their romance is horrible. He has one conversation with her, gives her a light while she's smoking, and then all of a sudden they're in love. That's crappy romance. Don't categorize this as a romance.
Like, okay, she's obsessed with him. Whatever, fine, whatever.
then she should be obsessed with him. She should know who he is and, like, Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know. It's ridiculous.
He should be like, why are you obsessed with me?
Wouldn't
that feed into your ego, Jacob Gentry?
Because I so rarely hear Matt rant. I have to know what he's written down on this. Like, I have to know. I see a lot of notes there.
Yeah, well, like, my note says, Abby equals constant, ? Why? Why does she have to bring the rose? They fucked once, he's in love, ? It's just, yeah.
I'm sorry, I just saw like, they fucked, like, I saw the question mark.
Yeah.
About, like, fucked once, and I was like, I need to know what you wrote down.
Yeah, it's just like a guy writing romance. You know what I mean? It's just like, yeah.
Yeah, she definitely should have been. It was weird, like, the passiveness she had towards him and the times that she was, like, obsessed with him. Mm-hmm. I didn't really understand. It was a man who didn't understand how to write romance. I'm just gonna say.
Yeah.
I know what that's like.
I know you do, but now you're getting better.
I'm getting better.
I know.
I would never write this.
No, you wouldn't. First of all, they would never fuck in your story.
That's true. They would not. It would be a very firm handshake.
Yeah.
Maybe lingers just a little too long on the handshake. Oh. You have strong hands, and your hands are quite feminine. In this, the woman has a strong hands, and he has quite soft hands.
Yes.
Yeah, of course.
She has man hands.
Well, because the guy would be a nerd, and she would be badass, I guess.
The scientist. She would be the scientist.
She would be the scientist.
She'd have an eye patch, and she would have seen some shit.
Yeah.
Okay, closing sets with this film.
Thank you.
Okay,
Get us back on track.
Because I really need, because so often we skip over this part, but we really do need to talk about the closing sets in this movie.
Yeah.
Because this movie, the clothes or whatever, but the sets,
Go on your rant.
try so hard to make it feel like the future, and yet at the same time don't. Like, it's so much effort to give a vibe, but it has no substance. Like, it has nothing. And, like, yes, I get it. We were just watching a movie last week, I think, or 2 weeks ago, Oblivion, with Tom Cruise. And there's a scene where, like, he has, like, a metro station, like, sign in his secret hideaway. And you're like, how did he get that?
Oh, yes, no.
But, you know what? At least there was, like, at least I got, as a character design, like, this guy's been collecting scrap for a while. And, like, I get what he's, like, longing for. There's none of that. The production design is so blank slate.
Yeah.
Yeah, it could be anywhere. It looks like a prison because there's nothing on any walls. There's no personality. There's literally no other people.
And there's spotlights going through windows as if someone's searching for a convict.
It was weird. It threw me off the most at the bar. That, like, okay, I get it was, like, the morning and breakfast and stuff, but one, the bar is still open. So, like, there should be, like, drunk old men regulars, like, passed out in the bar or something. Like, show me that there's other people, because all I'm seeing is that there's, like, Chuck, Maddie, 2 versions of Jim, Abby, and then Meisner and his wife up in their penthouse. And that's literally it. And the hotel guy.
Yeah, and there was the random waitress that, like, they were like, that made a really huge point to be like, do you want to hear options? Like, no, leave us alone, you dumb waiter.
It was like, it was so blatantly mean. Oh, thank you for bringing up that scene. Actually, there was a line that I literally had to write down because it was so horrible. They're arguing. This is towards the end of the movie. Jim and Abby are arguing, and she goes, "It's my choice, not yours." And he stands up and is about to storm off, and he goes, "Then it'll be your choice." And he leaves. I'm like, yeah, that's what she said. She goes, "It's my choice, not yours." And he's like, "Then it'll be your choice." And she's like, yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's my choice.
You can't fire me. I quit.
Well, then you're fired. That's what that conversation was. And it just was absurd.
Yeah, speaking of dumb lines, there was one where he's like, they're like, I don't know, he's trying to make amends to her or whatever in her apartment, and he's just like, there are these women that are shaman women that like enchant men. Are you a shaman? And she's like, I'm just a girl. It's like
standing in front of a boy, asking him to love her.
Dumb.
Oh my god!
And the whole, I don't know. It's just the writing at some points of the movie felt really forced. Like the one point, the Chuck is like, have you ever seen an Indian orgy? Fucking intense. It's like, don't write that. No one says that.
Yeah,
that just felt like
so weird.
It's an unnatural thing to say at that moment.
Do you know what I think about the writing?
Don't go for a bit.
Do you know what happened?
Mm-hmm.
Time travel made that guy a real asshole.
Yeah. Always relevant and always will be.
Yeah, that is a line of Chuck that I did like.
Yeah. But still, that was like, ew, like Chuck's not that like perverted, gross guy, and like all of a sudden in that one line you're trying to make him that way.
It was so obviously a writer that heard that joke somewhere and was like, oh, I gotta put that in a movie somewhere.
It's not even funny.
It isn't.
I don't even understand. Like, is there a joke about Indians or something that I'm not understanding?
No.
Well,
at least I don't think so. Maybe I have the wrong crowd.
The line, like when someone says like "fucking intense," like that's a typical like, oh yeah, think of the word tense as in like you're fucking in a tent. That's like a thing online. But like to have someone set up themselves to say, "Have you ever seen an Indian orgy?" and then to have to say "fucking intense," it's just.
You're right. I've seen it on Reddit before, and I totally blanked on that.
It's unnatural.
That went
it's
far
so
over
dumb.
my head. Like,
well, the joke is Maddie. He gets it like 5 minutes later. He's like, "Oh, I get it. Brilliant. Fucking intense." Like that's where it quote unquote pays off. But it's like it's just so unnatural.
Good lord.
Ew. Oh my god. Yeah, no, I have to drop like 1.5 points extra just because of that line now that I understand it. Just forewarning.
Yeah.
Any other notes? I know we'll get to experience, but
I've ranted on all of my rants.
I did like one line he says near the end of the film where he's talking to her and he says, "Time is what it's a time is a great teacher and all of its students have
and it kills all of its great students or whatever.
Time is a great teacher that eventually kills all of its students.
It is. Got it.
Yeah.
There it is.
I liked the bit where Chuck calls Jim Prime's phone in front of Jim Future.
Yeah.
I thought that was a really clever way to prove the time travel. That we don't. I feel like maybe we've seen it like a little bit. Maybe even in Primer, now I'm thinking about it, or something like that. But
yeah, to call someone while they're right next to you with their phone right next to you,
doesn't that happen in Primer?
No, I think they specifically don't call each other because they're afraid of that.
Someone calls someone on the phone or something. I don't know, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I think we might have seen a duplicate cell phone before.
No, I think doesn't he call? Someone calls him in Primer, and it's like a voicemail or something when they're like having that big fight in the house.
Okay, yeah.
And there's like his message is like playing over it or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, I haven't seen Primer in a while. I've blocked it from my brain. But okay. Anyway,
that's pretty much all my notes.
Yeah, I had in my notes like, can you change anything? You have to avoid collision of causality, stuff like that. They have a lot of those kind of words.
Yeah, they have a lot of stuff, but it's like the timeline is quote unquote consistent. We're just dealing with different timelines here that branch off when you time travel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I liked when he buzzed in the apartment that like the thing was like shocked them.
Yeah.
I liked stuff like that there were like consequences of them being near.
Yeah,
like,
that is what this movie.
Like the universe is trying to prevent them from interacting with each other, even like accidentally, which was nice.
Yeah, the movie. Out of all the things that we usually rail on time travel movies for, at least there are consequences there, and it's more than one. It's like his brain is being fucked up, like the shock, like you said. Like, stuff like that, at least that's here. That's one thing that I do like about this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. So, would you guys want to experience this time travel?
Hell
no.
No way.
Hard pass. There's actually rare movies that we actually would want to experience the time travel, I realize.
I can go for the ones that are a little bit more risky, because I think it'd be cool anyways. But this one, no way.
It's only 5 days. It's not even worth it.
There's no benefit. You're going to die.
And you die, yeah. There's nothing good going on.
Unless you get lucky and end up in a world where you died.
Right.
That's the only way you'll be fine.
Which is...
Oh, that's true, yeah.
Cool, I guess.
But it's physically impossible because you need a wormhole to go through anyways.
But they did that anyway at the end of the movie. Okay. Yep. All right, so... Final reviews?
Yeah.
I guess?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll start. Movie rating. So, things I liked. I liked the phone call. I liked Chuck for the most part. I do have to dock 1.5 points just because of that stupid Indian fucking line. It's honestly stupid. But he gets a little bit back because he had time travel made that guy a real asshole. And that was a great line that we'll use forever. I hated that they made her a writer writing a sci-fi novel about him, and it didn't make sense that she could see the future. All these things that we've named. There's definitely more things that I disliked than I did like. So for that reason, I think I'll probably give it a 3 out of 10.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. As much as we've read all of this movie, at least they give us stuff to talk about, and at least it did interesting things for us to rail on.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
I didn't like the aesthetic of the movie, like the sweeping spotlights from helicopters. It was just a dumb way to be like, see, it's like noir, it's backlit through windows or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't like that. The writing was pretty bad. A lot of the choices I think were just bad. But there was stuff that we liked. The consequences of his brain being fucked up and all that stuff. And him dying at the end, I think it was a pretty reasonable thing to happen after everything we saw.
Mm-hmm.
How it ended up being where he then time traveled to a thing where like there was no version of him anymore that made no wormhole, that I had a huge problem with.
Yeah.
And the fact that there was like a third version of him that had already done it somehow in that timeline makes zero sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree. I think I'll give it a 3 as well.
Oh boy, this movie has its moments for sure. I liked Chuck. There were some cool consequences. I actually liked the first time I saw it, the time travel, how they expressed that.
Yeah, with the wormholes.
They do overuse it. Yeah, it's just one of those weird films. I guess I'm gonna stick with you guys. I could see myself giving this movie a 2. I could see myself giving this movie a 4. I'm just gonna go in the middle then, like you, and say 3 because it's not a movie I can watch drunk and enjoy. Because there's no entertainment value really to it.
Yeah.
At the same time, it's not such a dumb movie that you just watch it and just sort of like, how did they come to this? You know, it's not that level of stupidity. Mm-hmm. It's just not well written, and there's just problematic things everywhere. So yeah, 3.
Yeah, I was like the same mindset as you as well. So that's where yeah.
Okay. Time travel rating. So I just have to dock so many points because the stupid parallel dimension jumping is so dumb, and I hate it a lot. I do like the consequences. I like that, there's physical consequences. He gets these headaches and stuff like that when the other one is near. And we do see a lot of use through the time travel. There are a lot of like things that happen because of it, which I appreciate. But on the whole, there's the huge plot holes. One that you mentioned of the end when there's a version of him that died and never made the wormhole, but yet there was another version of him there. Okay, that doesn't make sense. And the huge plot hole of the version of him that's dead in the hotel room doesn't make sense. So time travel, I guess I'll give the time travel a 3 out of 10 also, I think.
Okay. Yeah, the, at first I agree with you, Hyde. I was like, okay, I kind of, make a wormhole, make one end and make the other end,
right.
That's what I can get behind. That's kind of theoretically what you should do. So in that sense, I was like, okay, duplicates, the duplicate was there always.
True, yes.
But
I like
then,
the duplicates.
Yeah, but then they brought up this whole alternate dimension timeline thing. And then there's a third one that didn't come through a wormhole, so like they just broke their own rules. Mm-hmm. Like even if you say that, like, oh, if you open up the wormhole in the future, it can create the other end somewhere. But like, no, your rules are you make one in the past and you make one in the future. So like, if you make a wormhole, it doesn't just create it like both ends. You need both ends. Like you need to make both ends separately. So that just blew it all up. So for me, I'll give it a 2.
Actually, when I was watching this, even though I wasn't like super engaged in the film, I thought, at least this time travel is a little cool in terms of like it just has extreme consequence. The idea that someone could own time travel, like a stake in a company. I'm like, yeah, if time travel ever is invented, it's gonna be owned by like Elon Musk or like Jeff Bezos of Amazon. Like, if we ever get time travel, it's gonna be a product.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be a little more generous, surprisingly generous with the time travel, only because I do really like the consequences.
Yeah.
And so they screw it up at the end, so that made me drop it down as well. But I'm going to give it a 4 out of 10 with time travel.
Okay.
Only because for the first 2, until they get to the point like you're living in alternate timelines, or parallel universes, I actually was very like, okay, cool with the timelines. Mm-hmm. Or with the time travel.
Yeah.
So I'll give it a 4 out of 10. I'll be very generous to this movie, even though it doesn't really deserve it.
Cool. Okay, so on Rotten Tomatoes, this movie is 46%. Again, it's like a smaller movie, so there are not a ton of reviews, but the critics' consensus says, Synchronicity sci-fi reach exceeds its low-budget grasp, but it has some interesting ideas and serves overall as a nifty calling card for writer-director Jacob Gentry. I completely disagree 100%, but good for you.
Only 34% of audiences liked it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's funny that they mentioned the calling. Yeah, they mentioned that it's a calling card, which is you're like he tried to do that.
And, that was very intentional.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, you definitely picked up on that for sure. Okay, cool. So our next movie is back to my choice, and I'm so excited.
Yeah. It's a very Gen movie.
It's a very Gen movie. I've convinced these fools to let me and to watch with me Halloween Town 2: Calabar's Revenge, the Disney Channel original movie from 2001. Technically, yes, there is time travel in it. It's definitely not going to be as much talk about it as this movie was, but there's some stuff. I think hopefully it's enough. Okay. Too bad we're doing it anyway. And we will be having a special guest on. I won't reveal who that is, but we're very excited to have them. And I've seen this movie. I own this movie. I've seen it probably 10 times at least. Like wow. I've seen it a lot. I think I like this one the most in all 4 Halloween Town movies. And yes, there are 4.
Yeah, I mean, I've only seen Halloween Town 1 because you made me watch it in preparation of this eventual.
Gotta see the first one before you see the second.
So. But I've not seen this one yet.
I didn't have cable growing up. I remember seeing Halloween towns, but I don't remember like them in terms of like, yo, is this one and this one. I've probably seen it. I'll have to watch it again for sure.
Yeah.
No, like I will really have to. I might even have to watch the first one again and like really pay attention because it's been a long time. There's not a lot of nostalgia attached to it, unfortunately.
Yeah. No, it's that'll be interesting. It'll be a fun episode either way. So cool. All right, we would love for you to follow us on social media. We are at Time Travel Trio on Twitter and on Instagram. If you'd like to follow us on there, send us your ats or whatever. Feel free to rant at me, I understand. We are on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Stitcher. If you rate, subscribe, and follow us on one of those, we would appreciate you. If you write us a written review on iTunes, we will make up a fake time travel story about you. Which we would love to do, and no one has done it. Maybe because no one listens this far at the end of the episode. But if you do, points to you. Personal, I am at Jen Marlis on Twitter and Instagram. Oh, we're also on Facebook. Sorry, I think I always forget to mention. We're the Time Travel Trio podcast on Facebook. And personal, I am at Jen Marlis on Twitter and on Instagram.
And I am at Foreman in Space.
I'm at Robinson is High.
And
with that,
we are out of
time.
Time travel made that guy a real asshole.